Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show. Without any further ado, let's get this party started, folks. Do make sure that you stand, and if you can, or at least cover your heart for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Things are better left unknown, and I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live from a secret cave hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right, we're ripping through the electromagnetic soup. We're tearing through the atmosphere, and we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum sparticle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Thursday, March the 24th, 2022. That's right. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to cover tonight as we carry on our State of Mystery series with the great state of Oregon. And let me tell you, this state is absolutely packed with the paranormal. And we're going to get through it together, but first, let's go ahead and see who all we have out here in our chat rooms, both on the Dark Wolf's Den radio show as well as the Ripon Rabbit Hole YouTube channels. How we doing out here tonight, folks? Michael Fontaine seems to be the only one hanging out over in the Dark Wolf's Den show. Says YouTube cut you off again. Refresh the page. I probably should type that over there. If you do end up getting cut off at whatever point, we know YouTube's a little weird. Just refresh your page and it should come right back up. At least I hope it does. Anyway, like I said, Mandani Mall looks like he has hopped in over at the Dark Wolf's Den show. No gore, goodnight Oreo. Or GN Oreo, says Mandani Mall, is the anagram for Oregon. Rogan, I don't know, maybe we get Rogan out of that. I don't use all the letters though, does it? Don't count as an anagram if it don't use all the letters. I don't believe. And then over in the Ripon Rabbit Hole chat, we have Maggie's Aces. Hi, Dark. Hi, Maggie's. Glad to see you. I gotta admit, I was getting a little bit worried. Nobody was showing up there for a moment. Still not the biggest crowd, but the best crowd, that you can guarantee. Sandy B hanging out with us says, hey, y'all, I just got back from Raiders Super live stream. Shut off, I closed it and come back, says Michael. Yeah, I don't know why it does that. YouTube just doesn't like us for some reason, as we all know very well. Raider Champion, glad to see you, my friend, dropping in the Wonderland link by Chick and Michael Musco. Isn't that an amazing song? I can't get enough of it. I might be a little biased that it's my theme, but I can't get enough of that one. Who else we got here? Earl Taylor, glad to be hanging out with you backstage lately, Earl. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend, as well as Burgos. There's a name we don't get to see often enough. Glad to have you here. Burgos says, hey, Dark Wolf. Hello, family. Hello, Burgos. Always a pleasure. As well as Mandani Mall jumping in over here at the Ripon Rabbit Hole. And there's the one I was really expecting to see here. Earth Daughter says it's pronounced Oregon. Oregon. So I, for the longest time, pronounced it Oregon. And then a friend of mine started making fun of me and told me it was Oregon. Now I'm getting Oregon. So there's a variety of ways I think that you can say this name of this state. And it's definitely got its fair share of paranormal, that you can be sure. Where is that comment I was looking for here? A sparticle now, huh? Says Maggie's Ace. Yeah, I figured I'd do something a little different, right? Instead of the quantum particle, the quantum sparticle. I don't know. I thought it was funny. I may be the only one, but at least I thought it was kind of funny. Looks like that's all we have hanging out over here, guys. It's great to see every one of you guys here. It's always such a pleasure. Do me a favor, though, and share this out on all your social medias. We know how badly that YouTube tries to stop our broadcasts. I guess we don't censor enough for them, right? This one will be sanitized for YouTube's protection. Earth Daughter says, yay for Bigfoot country, yay indeed. But like I said, please do me a favor, send this out everywhere. Let's see if we can't pack these rooms up just a little bit more. And of course, whether you are joining us on YouTube or around the world on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, or of course on the after show on riponrabbithole.com or BitChute and Rumble, we're glad to have every last one of you guys along for the ride. That's right. And before we do get into the state of mystery that is Oregon, we have two more fun little segments to do. The first of which we call On this day in 1932, a radio first was done when a radio broadcast was done from a moving train. That's right. Definitely not something I would want to do. I rode the train. I don't think it would be the quietest broadcast. However, it was done for the first time on this day in 1932, and that is today's segment of
Say what?
Our quote of the day today comes from a guy named Hank. We'll find out more about this quote here in just a moment, but the quote is, and I quote, "Just leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. Just leave us alone and we'll leave you alone, and we'll all go home in the morning."
Say what?
And of course, we are here to discuss tonight the great state of mystery that is Oregon. And like I said a moment ago, this state is absolutely packed with the paranormal, like our first case file tonight.
In the shadow of Mount
Good to see you, Juanito.
St. Helens lies a canyon where a series of strange encounters have emerged over the past century. The first of these claims surfaced when a group of 5 seasoned miners headed out to the area on a seemingly routine expedition in search of gold. But what they found instead was something that none of the men could have ever anticipated.
Series, but more specifically tonight we are focusing on the birth of...
It's July 1924, and the team is working their promising gold claim with high hopes of striking it rich. And among the men was Fred Beck, who early on in the trip complained of a toothache. It was a long hike back, so he asked the most experienced woodsman in the group, Hank, if he would take him into town to see a dentist. But Hank refused to leave and replied,
"Neither God nor the devil could get me away from here."
And so the mining trip continued, with the men panning for gold day in and day out, taking refuge at night in their sturdy log cabin. Things were going smoothly. That is until one night when they heard strange whistling sounds echoing across the canyon. Although the men were accustomed to hearing noises at night, something about this sound was notably disturbing. Then, the following evening, they heard yet another unfamiliar sound, as if something was loudly thumping its chest. And pretty soon they all had an eerie sense that someone or something was watching them. This put the men on edge. Even Hank, who knew the land better than anyone, was becoming anxious. When they first arrived at the
Perhaps it would have been better off that they did stop their journey and go back home, right?
camp, he had noticed several large footprints scattered around the area, the likes of which he had never seen. Back then he thought nothing of it. Perhaps it was a bear. But now he was beginning to think it was something else entirely.
Something that they were not expecting to see for sure.
The next day, Hank and Fred went to get water from a nearby spring and brought along their rifles just in case. And it was there that Hank saw something lurking in the shadows about 100 yards away. He yelled to Fred, who turned just in time to see a huge 7-foot hairy man-beast. Hank raised his rifle and fired off 3 shots, hitting a tree and spraying bark in all directions. The astonished Fred fired off several more shots, but the creature had turned fled.
So it looks like they might have won this battle, but it only seemed to scare the beast off. Hello, Guide Line Strikes. Glad to see you, my friend.
When the shaken men returned to the cabin, they told the others of their terrifying encounter.
We gotta get out of here. There's some sort of mountain devil out there.
You sound like a madman.
Ain't no such thing as mountain devils.
And what I really love about this story is the skepticism that these guys originally show.
Yes, there is. I saw it, and I shot my rifle at it, too. Hank and Fred eventually convinced the men to go, but now the sun was setting, and their last chance to leave had already passed, and so the men would have to wait until first light. All they had to do was make it through the night.
And it's a night that they might have had a rougher time making it through than most, as this night is going to become one of the biggest stories they've ever been able to tell.
And so they hunkered down and drifted off to sleep with their rifles in hand. Morning couldn't come soon enough. It was around midnight when a loud thud awoke the men. Something hit the cabin. Fred saw Hank kicking and screaming and tried to calm him down. Quiet, quiet, be quiet. They heard heavy footsteps trampling through the brush right outside the cabin. Whatever it was huge, and there was more than one. The men readied their rifles, and then it began. What's that? Something's throwing rocks.
And as we know in many, many Bigfoot case files, we have these rocks being thrown, large rocks and boulders thrown across different areas. That's actually very common in a lot of case files of Bigfoot, right?
And that's when the cabin began to shake, and a thunderous barrage of boulders rained down upon them. The hysterical men fired at the roof, the walls, the doors, until suddenly, everything went quiet. Hold your fire! The men looked at each other. Was the siege over? Maybe if we stop firing, they'll leave us alone. Hank squinted through a gap in the logs and saw several shadowy ape-like creatures passing by.
So you would think, as logically he said, perhaps if they stopped firing, the creatures would just go away. Unfortunately, that is not the case.
He turned back to the group. I think they might be leaving. Suddenly, a large hairy arm reached inside and grabbed hold of an axe. Fred tried to wrestle it out of his clutches. Hank fired his gun. The creature released its grip and pulled its arm back out. The terrified men tried to regain their composure. But as soon as the arm withdrew, another assault began. The cabin began to shake violently, as if the creatures were trying to knock it down. The men wedged a post against the door, trying to secure it. Hank screamed incessantly and wildly fired his gun.
Begone, you mountain devils!
The entire night would go from a fierce battle to complete silence, over and over again.
So this didn't just happen one time. This was repeated over and over and over, back and forth between the men shooting the guns and the Bigfoots attacking, the Bigfootses, feetsuses, whatever plural you would like to use.
Fred and Hank led the charge, while the other men cowered in the corner. But as they waited for the next attack, Hank began to sing.
If you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. If you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. And we'll all go home in the morning.
Of course, you guys recognize this from the quote of the day. Makes a little more sense now, doesn't it?
And we'll all go home in the morning.
The night seemed endless, but soon, through the veil of smoke, Fred noticed a glint of light. Was it morning already? A welcome sense of relief swept over the men. The creatures had left. The attack was over. Somehow, they had made it through the night. The men grabbed only their essential items and cautiously exited the cabin with their guns drawn.
Well, at least they seem to survive the attacks, which a group of Bigfoot attacking isn't exactly the easiest thing to survive, one would think.
Once outside, Fred spotted one of the monsters on a nearby ridge. He fired, hitting the creature, who toppled into the gorge.
Better them than us.
The men made their way out of the canyon and headed towards the nearest ranger station. Fred urged everyone to keep their ordeal a secret for fear of ridicule. But upon their arrival, Hank couldn't help himself and described their bizarre encounter to the ranger. Word quickly spread, leading to the great ape hunt of 1924, where people from all over swarmed into the canyon in hopes of catching a glimpse or perhaps even taking down one of the creatures. But their search was in vain, and no solid evidence was ever found. After the encounter, the area was renamed Ape Canyon, and Fred Beck would go on to tell the story of that night, where he and 4 of his friends would be attacked by a pack of menacing beasts that some say may still be out there today.
And special thanks to the YouTube channel The Folklorist for bringing us this story, and this is called The Battle of Ape Canyon. One wild case file for sure. One that you don't really hear a lot about, but this being at the foot of Mount St. Helens is interesting because if you fast forward almost 60 years to May 18th, 1980, you find another really intriguing story. You see, in 1980, Mount St. Helens blew its top. The year I was born, nonetheless. In many respects, the story that come out of Mount St. Helens afterwards parallels the claims of military retrieval of extraterrestrial bodies in the deserts near Roswell, New Mexico in '47. These stories say that an entire operation was created to recover 5 or possibly 6 Bigfootses, whatever you would like to pluralize that as, Bigfoot from the pulverized remains of Mount St. Helens and was coordinated by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. The USACE notes that its role is to deliver vital public and military engineering services, partnering in peace and war to strengthen our nation's security, energize the economy, and reduce risk from disaster. In other words, they would indeed have been the ideal body to have played the role of recovery. Bigfoot researchers have been told that several bodies were reportedly found on a 105-mile-long stretch of the Cowlitz River in the Cascade Mountains. Military Chinook helicopters were said to have been flown into the area and later exited with corpses of several large, hairy, ape-like animals hanging from the powerful nets strung beneath the helicopter. Their destination remains tantalizingly and frustratingly unknown. However, in 2012, a story surfaced from a former National Guardsman who maintained that he was actually on site when at least some of the Bigfoot recoveries did occur, under the cover of extensive secrecy nonetheless. Incredibly, he claimed that not all of the retrieved Bigfoot were dead. Some were burned, others were severely injured, and a few critically so. Particularly outrageous is the claim that the military had assistance from 1 to 2 unharmed Bigfoot that helped guide military personnel to the site where the injured hairy giants lay, which, in my opinion, would be expected from a semi-civilized group of creatures like this. There's absolutely no doubt that the stories of the dead and injured Bigfoot on the Mount St. Helens disaster of 1980 are fascinating. Admittedly very problematic, however, is the glaring fact that not one of the alleged retired or former military personnel that have divulged such fantastic stories have been willing to reveal their names. Now, would you blame them, folks? If you had information like that the government threatened your life and your family against telling, would you come out with your real name and tell them or tell your story? I doubt many would, and that is a problem in the paranormal world, and that's why we have to look at each case file individually and see what things line up. I've heard from a number of Bigfoot researchers that swear that Mount St. Helens had a number of injured Bigfoot that were removed after the 1980s explosion. Then if you couple this with the case file that we just heard, it's easy to see that there's a good likelihood that the area around the base of Mount St. Helens, especially Ape Canyon, more likely than not, is got a lot of Bigfoot creatures within it. But it's not the only cryptid creatures in the Pacific Northwest, specifically Oregon. Of course, we know there are a ton of Bigfoot stories that come out of that area, but there's also a sea monster, believe it or not, called Colossal Claude. And that is a very good point, Earth Daughter. Mount St. Helens is in Washington. It just goes to show the relation, you know what I mean, the closeness, that the Bigfoots are all over the Pacific Northwest. Go-Kart Bob, glad to see you here, as well as Prairie Fire. Glad to have you guys along for the ride.
In March of 1934, the most famous sighting of Colossal Claude took place. It was like any other cold Newport morning for First Mate Larson and the crew aboard the Columbia Lightship Rogue. The young first mate was peering through his telescope, searching for signs of salmon school. Suddenly, a large head broke the surface of the water, revealing a giant sea creature. The monster had a neck some 8 feet long, a big round body, mean-looking tail, and an evil, snaky look to its head.
And of course, anyone who's been listening to this show for a while will know that this perfectly fits the description of the sea creature that we've got many, many times from many, many case files. About 8 feet long, a big round body, a mean-looking tail, which we've heard a variety of descriptions of the tails of these creatures, but what really gets me is the snaky look to its head. It says, like a snake, like a sea serpent. We've had a variety of different heads described, of course, but still, you've got that general similarity across these case files, and this one being no different.
The entire crew of the Rogue soon saw the same creature and reported observing Claude for some time before he eventually vanished into the litter.
Huh. Well, that was something. How do you know so much about Colossal Claude?
You think I got this hook in a swimming pool, boy? I've been sailing these seas for years. I've seen things.
And interestingly enough, this isn't the only sighting of Colossal Claude, merely the first sighting. In 1937, a trawler docked in Astoria, and the skipper came ashore and reported seeing, and I quote, a long, hairy, tan-colored creature with the head of an overgrown horse, about 40 feet long, with a 4-foot waist measure, end quote. So it doesn't directly match the first sighting, but it does match other sightings that we have heard in the last couple months, especially the overgrown horse head. We've heard the horse head description a number of times on these sea serpents. But this isn't the only sea serpent found in Oregon. There's also one called the Wallowa Lake Monster, also known as Wally. A local legend among the Nez Perce tribe states that when the Nez Perce and Blackfeet were at war, the daughter of the Nez Perce chief fell in love with the son of the Blackfoot chief. One night the couple took a chance and took a canoe from the Nez Perce camp and rowed out on the lake. Eventually the rival tribes realized what was happening and set out after them. The monster then came up out of the lake and attacked them, killing them all. To this day, the Nez Perce do not venture out onto the lake. An article was written in the local Wallowa Chieftain newspaper on November 5th, 1885, detailing a local resident's encounter with the monster. Quote, a prospector who refuses to give his name to the public was coming down from the south end of the lake on Friday evening in a skiff shortly after dusk. About midway of the lake, he saw an animal about 50 yards to the right of the boat rear its head and neck up out of the water 10 to 12 feet. But on setting him, it immediately died, and I think it means seeing him. The article goes on, he ceased rowing and gazed around in astonishment for the strange apparition which he had just seen, when it raised about the same distance to the left, this time giving a low bellow, something like a cow. It also brought its body to the surface, which the prospector avers was about 100 feet in length. I somehow think that might have been a bit exaggerated, then again, maybe not. The monster glided along in sight for several hundred yards. It was too dark to see the animal distinctly, but it seemed to have a large, flat head, something like that of a hippopotamus, and its neck, which was about 10 feet in length, was as large around as a man's body. Now, this story may have been coined in the imagination of the narrator, but he was very earnest in his recital. However, it is a known fact that there is a tradition among the Indians that the lake has a big sea cow in it, which on one occasion many years ago came up one evening and swallowed a young warrior and his dusky bride as they were gliding over the surface of the lake in a canoe. To this day, an Indian of the tribes who formerly frequented its shores cannot be induced to go up on its waters, as we heard earlier about the Nez Perce. So it seems Oregon has a wide variety of cryptid creatures, from sea monsters to Bigfoots, and I've actually even run across a couple Thunderbird sightings as well. There is a number of strange creatures in the area of Oregon. And like I said in the beginning, Oregon is packed with the paranormal. But of course, you guys know that music means we have to go ahead and take a network break right here. So my name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you're listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show exclusively on Ripon, Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole, home of the Freedom Flame. We'll be right back with the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show after these messages. Stick around. Don't touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks on the Thursday night. Hi everyone, it's AJ the Rip.
One moment, it seems like we're having a bit of a technical difficulty connecting over to AJ over there. Let's try one more time.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks on the Thursday.
Now that is very strange indeed. Well, we have a wonderfully amazing weekend coming up, folks, here on the RiponRabbitHole.com and the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network. AJ has a lot of surprises on the way. We have a bit of a wild card schedule this weekend. Let's see if we can reconnect with him one more time here. Yeah, it looks like the connection's going through, and here we go.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks on the Thursday night. Hi everyone, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's Dark Wolf's Den radio show broadcast, State of Mystery for Oregon? I know I am. If you are and you haven't done so already, please make sure to hop on over to our website, RiponRabbitHole.com. There you can sign up for your exclusive Backstage VIP pass. It's going to give you unfiltered access down the rabbit hole to our privatized social media network. It's absolutely free to join. It always will be. It's going to unlock a bunch of really cool features with you there. Now, yesterday is normally the day that we update our schedule on Wednesday. However, I've been working on some very unique guests to be able to bring to you this weekend, and that I will do Friday night, March 25th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Come along with me as we journey deep down the rabbit hole as we connect live and get to know Andrew Dowling, who's a local young man from Ripon College who decided he was going to run against the unopposed mayor of Ripon, Ted Grant. So if you've been a long-time listener and you know how we follow the Common Sense Council shows, this is going to be an exciting evening as we get to know Mr. Dowling and his platform. We're going to find out exactly what kind of hoops he had to jump through as a late-minute candidate to the race. He will be participating in the election as a write-in. So it's very important if you live in Ripon, Wisconsin, that you commit the name Andrew Dowling to your memory so that you can write it in your ballot on April 5th. Speaking of another local candidate you'll want to keep your eye on, join me Saturday night, March 26th, as I welcome the candidate for Fond du Lac County Supervisor. Mr. Timothy Bachleiner will be here. He's going to tell us all about the hoops he's had to jump through and just what it means to be a county supervisor. And then we'll end out the weekend right Sunday with, at the moment, a mystery broadcast. I have one other guest that hopefully will join us Sunday night. And regardless, if it happens or doesn't, it's going to be a great way to end out the weekend right together with you, because I have a backup for Sunday, March 27th. All shows start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. So mark your calendars and be here or be square. We'll return back to tonight's topic, State of Mystery for Oregon. Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den radio show. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, home of the Freedom Flame, RiponRabbitHole.com.
And remember, if you would like to support us here at the Dark Wolf's Den Show, you can always buy our book Moon Madness, available on Amazon. $7 for the Kindle version, $12 for the paperback, and it's a good way to help support everything we do here at the Dark Wolf's Den Show, and you get a book also, so you really can't beat it, right?
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Thursday, March the 24th, 2022. Ha! So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. If you're just tuning in tonight, folks, in the first half, we went over a number of cryptid creatures, from lake monsters to a battle of Bigfootses, whatever the plural you would like to choose for that. It has definitely been a wild ride so far, and we're only halfway through. Of course, in the second half, we like to touch on the hauntings of Oregon, and it has more hauntings, I would say, than it even has cryptid creatures, and that is saying a lot. And we are going to start off tonight's list with
Forest Grove. Forest Grove, located in Washington County, Oregon, about 25 miles west of Portland, is a small city acting primarily as a commuter town to the much larger PDX Metro that originated as a farming village, and its incorporation in 1872 marked the first incorporation in the whole of the county. The most famous ghost story surrounding this sleepy community tells of a towering phantom that roams its forested patches, believed to be the apparition of a lumberjack.
Earth Daughter, you might not have been here earlier when I was talking about it. I used to call it Oregon for the longest time, and my friend at the time reminded me, or told me, that that isn't quite how you say that word, and she said it was Oregon. So I've had a multitude of pronunciations for that word. I still say Oregon most of the time, to be fair.
That's been known to attack and kill any who cross its path, and that, disturbingly, has even been linked to several murders.
One thing that we have not heard a lot of in these state case files of hauntings is the murderous ghost, right? We've only heard just a couple case files that include that element. We might actually have to create a new category just for the murder ghosts, right? That is disturbing to say the least, if you ask me.
Most recently, in 2016, the town was plagued by a phenomenon recognized as the Forest Grove Sound, during which time locals reported an otherworldly mechanical scream that was heard through surrounding woodlands that drove both pets and residents crazy. This perturbing noise was heard for the last time on the 27th of February, and while we have yet to wait on an official explanation as to its source, informal theories range from an angered Sasquatch to extraterrestrials.
I'm going to go ahead and put my theory on the pile. I think it's underground bases being created by these boring machines. It's the only thing that makes sense to me, right? It has no top ground explanation. Perhaps it's coming from underground, right?
The Liberty Theater. The Liberty Theater, located off Commercial Street in the charming coastal town of Astoria, is a historic vaudeville theater and cinema housed within a larger structure recognized as the Astor Building. Historically, the site now holding this theater was, to old-timers, known as John Dad Farrell's Sawmill, but in 1883, a group of local boys fashioned a fire nearby, and it grew out of control, consuming the east half of the original commercial district. In 1907, construction was started on the Weinhard Astoria Hotel, which would open its doors in 1910. However, the Astoria fire of 1922 would claim both the hotel and an earlier theater, along with around...
By the way, good to see you over here in the Dark Wolf's Den Show, My Life, and JoJo's. My Life says Oregon also.
30 additional blocks of downtown. The Liberty Theater we know today would first open its doors in 1925, atop the site of the former Weinhard Astoria Hotel, as the first theater to be re-established following the Great Blaze, and, in a way, as a symbol of the city's rebirth. In the year 2000, the Liberty would undergo a slew of much-needed restorations and refurbs, and wouldn't reopen until 2005, with restorations formally concluding in 2006. The Liberty Theater remains open into the present, hosting a range of concerts, stage performances, movie showings, events, and, as legend has it, an assortment of supernatural infestations, with both staff and visitors to the Astor Building reporting objects sighted moving on their own, instances in which the popcorn and soda machines operate by themselves, and doors that open, close, and whose handles rattle spontaneously.
So far, this definitely qualifies as an active, ongoing haunting. I could only imagine watching soda machines and popcorn machines work on their own. That actually would be kind of cool, right?
The specter of an elderly woman in nice clothing has been encountered roaming about the...
If a ghost wants to make me popcorn and a soda, I definitely am not going to disagree. What about you guys?
The apparitions of two men in top hats have been witnessed chatting in various spaces, and the manifestation of a younger, beautiful woman in Victorian-era clothing has been spied in the upstairs restrooms, and has been known to materialize behind the living in the mirrors.
We get so many case files like this with these apparitions from a bygone time. It really does make me wonder if there's a parallel mirror universe, if you will, running just right beside ours that sometimes becomes so thin that we can see between the universes. Just a theory, but definitely something very intriguing indeed.
Lastly, one of the Liberty's most famous ghosts is easily that of Handsome Paul, a sleek-looking gentleman always clad in a white tuxedo and Panama hat, who's been known to tug on the hair and clothing of women he finds attractive, before promptly vanishing.
What I do find strange is if it is a situation of two different dimensions running together, I wonder why we're not able to affect the other side. Then again, maybe we are and we're unaware. That I don't know. Perhaps they're unaware that they're ghosts on that side, and they may not be ghosts, but very well alive as you and I, as we've discussed that theory a couple times on this channel. But just the same, when you have interactions with ghosts that find women attractive, for instance, and only mess with those particular people, it just goes to show more so that there is some type of interaction between the two realms. And next up on our list, as we try to cover in every state, we have a haunted college.
Lewis and Clark College. Today, Lewis and Clark is comprised of 3 schools, including a law school, the College of Arts and Sciences, and the Graduate School of Education and Counseling. It hosts an undergraduate enrollment of around 2,000 students, offers 36 study abroad programs throughout various countries, and, according to Campus Myth, boasts a range of resident paranormal activity. The South Campus is rumored to be stalked by a presence that favors the Agnes Flanagan Chapel, and those frequenting the area have reported strange knocking and banging sounds, and an otherworldly light spied in empty rooms on the 2nd floor through windows by those passing by. The most famous legend surrounding Lewis and Clark tells that at the center of campus at 1 a.m. every night, a sort of supernatural bomb detonates, and those who have braved standing in the area have described the sudden and unnerving feeling of being surrounded by persons unseen, the disembodied shouts of what sounds like a crowd of people, and the strange manifestation of a man being chased by a mob that always disappears into the night.
Now, what I find extremely interesting about this particular case file, of course, is the fact that this happens every single night at 1 a.m., according to what's been said. So if you are a paranormal researcher in the area of Oregon, perhaps a trip to Lewis and Clark College might be in order.
But Lafayette Pioneer Cemetery.
I honestly would be more surprised if we found a cemetery that did not have a haunting, you know?
Lafayette Pioneer Cemetery, located off Northeast Dunaway Road in Lafayette, is a historic abandoned cemetery boasting the titles of being both one of the oldest and one of the most infamously haunted graveyards in the whole of Oregon. Historically, Lafayette was founded in 1846 under pioneer and entrepreneur Joel Perkins. Its cemetery was plotted through the 1850s. In 1851, the locale's post office was established, and the city would incorporate in 1878. In 1885, one Richard Marple, accompanied by his mother Anna and wife Julia, would move to the area. It's believed Marple made his living committing small robberies and other various petty crimes. On November 1st of 1886, when local shopkeeper David Corker was discovered murdered, his store stripped clean, Marple was the first person questioned. Damning evidence was later discovered on his property, and despite continued pleas from his wife and mother, on April 9th of 1887, Richard was convicted of murder. When it came time for his execution by hanging, disturbingly, something went wrong, and instead of a cleanly broken neck, Richard spent 18 minutes suffocating to death, while Anna could be heard from the back of the crowd cursing the town that it might burn for wrongly killing her son. Today, Lafayette Pioneer Cemetery remains standing and is maintained by the Yamhill County Historical Society, who keeps it closely patrolled and for the most part semi-accessible. Likely fueled off Marple's story, local legend tells that long ago, a local witch was sentenced to death, and that, before she was hanged, she cursed the town to burn 3 times, in a similar fashion to Marple's mother, Anna. Disturbingly, so far there have been 2 major fires that have claimed good portions of Lafayette, and some tell that if one visits the witch's grave or even steps foot onto the old burial grounds after dark, they'll likely encounter the old hag's spectral form wandering about, and may even be attacked or physically injured by.
And again, we have this same theme going on through this weekend of these ghosts actually harming people. Once again, I do think we're going to have to start a new category of harmful ghosts, right?
Some variations to this tale claim.
Now, I made a joke in the first half, if you were with us in the first half, about Rogan and that being part of the name of Oregon. Mandani Mall has verified me here. Oh, Rogan is a anagram of Oregon. There you go, folks.
Claimed that Anna was actually the witch. However, Anna was never hanged and is buried today in Jacksonville Cemetery, also in Oregon. In several reports from Marple's cellmate, it's claimed Anna played a role in the murder, leading some to believe the supposed ghostly witch is actually the vengeful spirit of Anna, returning for all those who had a hand in her son's death.
And as we know, this definitely fits our recipe for a haunting, right? High trauma, high emotion, high chance of haunting.
Another lesser spoken of spirit rumored to roam this old boneyard is that of Lena Elsie Emis, who in 1908 committed suicide in her home, now the Argyle Winery, by way of drinking carbolic acid, after which she was laid to rest at Lafayette, Pioneer. Lena's disembodied footsteps have been heard from empty spaces. Her presence has been noted to carry with it the smell of flowers. And on a related note, she's also been encountered at the winery from time to time.
Again, it does make one wonder if these folks are either reliving these in a stone tape fashion, or if it really is another world that we enter when we do pass from this one, a world that is incredibly interactive with this side.
Lithia Park. Lithia Park, located off Winburn Way alongside Ashland Creek in downtown Ashland, Oregon, is a 100-acre public expanse recognized as the city's largest and most central park. Historically, in 1852, the site that now acts as Lithia's entrance once held a flour mill, owned and operated by Abel and Helman Eber Emery, that was actually one of the first structures within what is now Ashland, and, as local legend tells it, a range of ghostly phenomena, with those frequenting its bounds reporting strange sounds like whistling or laughter from the trees, instances in which those utilizing GPS are sent to mysterious back entrances.
Kind of reminds me of that song, The Forest Echoes with Laughter, right?
Entrances that they are strangely never able to locate again.
Of course, this is no surprise, as we know many spirits tend to, if not all spirits, tend to mess with electronics, at least to some degree. GPS, of course, being an electronic object.
And encounters with the manifestation of a man with a hunched back, thought to be the soul of a former railroad worker. One more infamous story surrounding Lithia tells of a young woman who was murdered on its grounds sometime through the 1800s, whose spirit is now commonly encountered, usually as a glowing blue mist near the duck pond that carries with it an icy chill. Another tale tells of a logger who enjoyed using his old alcohol jugs as musical instruments that was killed when he was crushed under a falling tree. And to date, countless visitors have described hearing the sounds of his chilling melody in the distance.
And once again, in both of these tales, we find the recipe fits again for the haunting. High trauma, high emotion, high chance of haunting. And real quick, we don't normally do this, but Earth Daughter here is from Oregon. We're glad to have her along for the ride. She hangs out with us every single episode that she can, anyway. And she has a case file herself. Says that she has seen a shadow person in Oregon. So a bonus case file for you guys tonight, straight from our listener, Earth Daughter. And that's exactly what we find. It almost seems in every single case file. But what do you think, folks? Do you think from the cryptid creatures to the paranormal ghostly encounters that seem to plague the state of Oregon, could it definitely be a state of mystery? Or are we barking up the wrong tree? In the end, folks, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and
you be the judge.
That's right, Bubby. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Radio Show for Thursday, March the 24th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the den may be closing, but don't you worry. The weekend fun has only just begun, that's right. And we have wild card weekends like this. Do make sure that you check out the Ripon Rabbit Hole to follow our very static, or non-static, very dynamic schedule tonight. I'll get the right words here in a minute, I promise. But tomorrow, Friday, March 25th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, our buddy AJ the Ripon Rabbit takes back to the airwaves with an all-new episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show, as he will be discussing a very interesting topic indeed. The Mayor of Ripon, Wisconsin, Mr. Ted Grant, has went unopposed for quite a while, until now. We would like to introduce you to Mr. Adam Dowling tomorrow night, as he will be a brand new late-minute candidate for the office of mayor and might give Mr. Grant a run for his money. And AJ is going to be discussing a lot with Mr. Adam tomorrow, Friday, March 25th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. I, of course, wanted to cover a lot of how to get involved with these things on my Freedom Flame series, but we've had an issue on that and had to postpone those, so I'm glad to see AJ picking up the reins on this, as well as following it up on Saturday, March 26th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as AJ the Ripon Rabbit comes back again for another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. And this time he's going to be discussing the same type of things with the county supervisor candidate, Mr. Timothy Bockliner. And let me tell you, I've had the honor and pleasure of conversing with Mr. Timothy Bockliner myself. This is a very interesting gentleman that I really enjoyed talking to when I had the chance, and AJ, I'm sure, is going to enjoy it even more as he discusses what county supervisor is, how to get involved with such roles, and what it takes to be in these positions. All that and more coming up on Saturday, March the 26th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then, as AJ announced at the break, there is going to be a special guest possibly lined up for Sunday, March the 27th, 2022, as AJ the Ripon Rabbit takes back to the airwaves with a very, very special show that is, well, it's a surprise. I'm not going to ruin the surprise for you guys. Why would I do that, right? But to stay up to date with all the information that is coming up on the Ripon Rabbit Hole here on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, make sure you are tuned in to the RiponRabbitHole.com. That is RiponRabbitHole.com. Over there, you're going to be able to stay up to date in our Listen Live section, our schedule that we try to keep up to date as much as possible. And like AJ said during the break, normally our schedule comes out on Wednesdays, but we have been changing it up a little bit and trying to get ahead of the game over there. So make sure you are constantly checking as things change on the fly sometimes, and it's always good to be up to date. Do make sure you sign up for your Backstage Pass at the RiponRabbitHole.com. That is free and always will be. And that is going to get you access to all of the fun features on the Ripon Rabbit Hole, like the Down the Rabbit Hole section. That is our exclusive privatized social media section. Place for all the rabbits to come and drop information where you won't be shadow banned or have your truth removed or be fact checked, by those fake fact checkers that run things like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all those non-freedom sites. We believe in freedom over here and love to share it with every last one of you guys. Also, my favorite place to hang out, the 24/7 Backstage Lounge, can be found over at the RiponRabbitHole.com, of course. And that is where I'm going to be right after the show with the rest of the rabbits. We've had a lot of friends coming in lately that don't normally come back and hang out with us, and we're glad to see the numbers expanding back there. And it's great to see every last one of you guys, and I hope to see you all here in just a moment. With that said, we have to get out of here for this week, folks. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure hanging out with all of you guys. Sandy B, Mandani Mall, My Life, JoJo's, Go-Kart Bob, Raider Champion, Maggie's Aces, Overprotected, I seen you sneak in there. All of you guys, Prairie Fire, Juanito, Earl Taylor, it's so wonderful having one of you guys with us every weekend. So on behalf of AJ the Ripon Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everyone involved with Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, as well as Red Shed Studios for this amazing music, my name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And remember, until we meet again, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. How? Yeah. That's right. See you next week. Bye now.
Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever home. Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion?
Let's go, Brandon.
Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
If you would like to support us here at the Dark Wolf's Den Show, do make sure you check out our new book available on Amazon called Moon Madness. It is available in both e-Kindle and paperback versions, $7 for the electronic version, $12 for paperback. I'm kind of partial, but I like it. It's a great way to support us here at the Dark Wolf's Den Show, as well as, you get a free book, or you get a book out of the deal. Can't beat that. Good night, folks.